He had been a man of faith, a man of God. In truth, he still was, though that faith had been tested these long months and years. He was a priest, and as all good priests had done, when the fog came, he turned to God. He turned to God for guidance, and the town had turned to him. But as the creeping death had killed the sheep out in the fields, so too had it killed the flock of his congregation. Initially, the old priest had gathered people in the church, believing that their pious faith in God would hold the doom at bay and perhaps provide salvation. In fact, this was partly true. The creeping death could not invade man-made structures in the same way that it oozed from the earth. So any man-made structure, one of faith or not, was safe for a time. Believing that God had shone down his light and gifted his protection on this holy place, the congregation began to gather at the church. The old priest had given alms to the poor, offered food and nourishment, a bed for the night for those who could not afford it. He had taken in the donations of the rich and gave them a bed beside their old servants, paupers, orphans and the poor. All were welcome under his roof, all had broken bread with each other, whether prince or pauper, lord, lady or layabout. However, the fog began to rise and continued to do so after the harsh winter had thawed and the spring released it from the earth. This church was low to the ground, positioned in a slight ditch in its local town. It was slightly lower than the surrounding lands, which meant the fog more easily surrounded and engulfed the small, crowded church. The creeping death hung at a constant distance from the ground, and due to the church's position in the ditch, the smog more easily bellowed in from all angles and smothered the floor. Still desperately clinging to their faith and the belief of salvation, the church's inhabitants built beds and walkways to keep the fog at bay. This worked for a time as the church's roof was high, but as the situation became dire and the fog continued to rise, tempers frayed and the calm began to strain. Cooperation ceased. Soon the small town's inhabitants began to fracture into factions. Some left to brave the fog in hopes of finding safety, where others believed God demanded repentance for their sins. Before long, talk of sacrificing those perceived as sinful began as a hushed whisper among the group. As more died, the old priest did what he could. His faction held that this was a test by the Lord, and salvation would arrive at the zenith of their suffering. They clung to the naive belief that divine intervention would arrive and drive back the fog, if only they could remain devoted for a little while longer. The second group, who had claimed the nave as their territory, spoke of killing the sinners at the altar, ridding the world of them, and that the sooner this was done, the sooner the Lord's grace would save them from the fog. The third and final group were residing at the narthex. Not only did they control the entrance, but they also held the most divergent belief to the other two groups. This group proposed that God had turned upon them and cast them into damnation. With the eyes of God turned away from them, it was up to humanity to do what it deemed necessary to survive. 2 tenuous months after the formations of the factions, the first murder happened in the night. With no witnesses, the last food having run out 2 days ago, and desperation setting in, it was the third group that suggested the unthinkable: to cook and eat the murder victim in order that the rest might survive. This offended the pious, and tensions between the three groups finally reached breaking point and erupted into a riotous melee. As the factions went to war in the confined space, someone knocked over a prayer candle at the altar. One of the scaffolds built to keep them from the fog caught aflame, and within moments the church was ablaze. Between the brutal fighting, their sick and weakened state, and the blaze, almost all of the town was killed within a few short minutes of the riot beginning. As they fled the flames, some tripped and fell, their bodies engulfed in the knee-high fog. They were claimed by the creeping death. At the end of it all, less than an hour since the fight broke out, the priest stood alone at the edge of the ditch and watched his old church crumble to ruin. As the church was consumed and engulfed in flame, the pit that it sat in looked to him as though it was the very pit of Gehenna itself. Part of the old priest's faith died that day, not his faith in the Lord, but his faith in humanity, and as his home and congregation burned, He turned away from the horror and set forth on a pilgrimage into the fog and the new world of the creeping death. Warrior priests are a powerful support character for your Doom companies. While they possess average skill and movement, they have low defense and combat capabilities. While you may use an improvement point upon them at the creation of your Doom company to increase their skill or effectiveness in combat, this is not where they shine. The Warrior Priest is the only character of the 8 currently playable classes that is able to heal your injured Doom Warriors. The Warrior Priest may heal the flock to restore vitality to themselves or an ally, and once per game can perform last rites on a fallen Doom Warrior to return a friendly model to life with 1 vitality. The last of their abilities allows them to instill the fear of God upon an enemy model and drive them back in fear. This can even be used to cause a rival Doom Warrior to throw themselves from ledges or high places to help secure victory in battles for the high ground. Would you include a Warrior Priest in your Doom companies for 1490 Doom? Let me know in the comments below. To discover more lore on 1490 Doom, click the playlist linked to your left. Alternatively, to listen to an introduction to the creation of 1490 Doom, click the video linked to your right to discover the Feel No Pain podcast and listen to the story of 1490 Doom's creation from Eric Michael Robertson of wargames. For discounts on your hobby supplies and to back the 1490 Doom game found, click the links in my description below. Please like, subscribe, share a favourite video with a friend, or consider becoming a channel member. And with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon.